The following is the OA preamble. Overeaters Anonymous is a fellowship of individuals who, through shared experience, strength and hope, are recovering from compulsive eating. We welcome everyone who wants to stop eating compulsively. There are no dues or fees for members, and we are self-supporting through our own contributions, neither soliciting nor accepting outside donations. OA is not affiliated with any public or private organisation, political movement, ideology or religious doctrine, and we take no position on outside issues. Our primary purpose is to abstain from compulsive eating and compulsive food behaviours and to carry the message of recovery through the 12 steps of OA to those who still suffer. So how this meeting works. At this meeting, we follow a rotating format. On usually the second week of the month, we made an exception this month. The second week of the month is a recovered OA speaker who will be speaking on a topic of their choosing for up to 30 minutes. And it will then be followed by a Q&A segment for the remainder of the meeting, where all fellows are welcome to ask questions of our speaker related to the topic in question. So just let you know that this meeting will be recorded by audio only, and you'll see the recording at the top of your screen. At this meeting, the Q&A section will also be recorded. So if you have a question you'd like to pose to our speaker, we ask that you use the chat function, ideally to me, but we'll open the chat if you struggle to find that. Send your questions to me directly and I will ask them anonymously on your behalf. Please don't do this before the Q&A segment opens. So we'll just pause for our seventh tradition before we share. It is time for our seventh tradition. Although we meet electronically, we still have Zoom meeting costs to pay, and we also give contributions to our virtual intergroup, which is OA UK EB. To make a contribution, please use the PayPal details which have been posted into the chat. And if you are new, we ask that you wait to contribute until you are sure you want to be here. Okay, so tonight we are honoured to have one of our very own, our wonderful Gail B, who'll be sharing her experience, strength and hope on the topic of the ongoing journey to emotional sobriety. So Gail, I'll hand over to you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. I'm Gail, compulsive eater. I thought I'd centre this on emotional sobriety because that's what I'm striving for. You know, I came into OA thinking I had a problem with food, and if I could just put the food down and be slim, my life would be perfect. And I had no idea that actually it's all about my feelings and how I manage those or don't manage them. And the program really and recovery is really all about that, getting that emotional sobriety, not just sobriety from the food and my red foods. And Bill Wilson wrote about it a long time ago, and he called it the next frontier. And he said that, how do we deal with our fears and our compulsions and all of these phony aspirations, he called them, that stream from us? And how do we manage, or what manages, our Jekyll and Hyde personalities? Because if we can sort all that out, we won't go to the food. In my case, obviously alcohol with him. So I've been in OA 6 years. I've been abstinent for 2 years and 7 months. So that gives you a clue of, it has not been a straight line. And I've had abstinence and then relapse, very short and sharp, for 1 day at a time but really my abstinence has been for the last 2.5 years, just over. And I've danced around the program. I actually first came into the program in 1996. Where 1995, and I heard about it through university, and I used to go to a weekly meeting in Southampton, which was face to face, and it was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant, and I felt great calm and serenity in those rooms. But as soon as I walked out of the room, caught the train back to my halls, it went out of my mind until the next week. And that's the thing, really. I know I have to weave this through my life every day. Because I forget. I would just forget. I'd go charging into my day if I don't remind myself first thing in the morning. And before I know it, I can be back in the food. So my childhood, I think, who knows what makes us a compulsive overeater? Who knows what it is actually led me to choose food as my drug of choice. I'd never even heard about anything. You can now find binge eating disorder on the NHS, and I read, when I first read step 1 in the 12 and 12 of OA. I couldn't believe it. It was like somebody'd read my mind. All the things they identified, I absolutely got. But when I was a kid, I just had this terrifying secret. And I think it started genuinely. I can see from old photos when I was a baby, I was a really wanted baby. And I think I was pretty much adored. And then my sister came along, siblings, it's such a cliche, but I think I was jealous and I think I felt marginalized. And I think that was probably when the low self esteem started. My sister was just the baby and was treated as such. And, that's kind of how it went on. But I think, there's a lot more to it than just that. I realized through when I was doing my step 4, my dad was very old fashioned, very, of his generation, really, not able to show his emotions, very stiff upper lip, very traditional. And there, it wasn't a cuddly sort of household. It was very, stiff upper lip. He was in the RAF, and he was the sort of person that would go shopping on a Saturday morning in a shirt and tie, very sort of formal. And because he was in the RAF, we moved around a bit. And as I went through my childhood, my mum became ill. She was called a manic depressive then. It's a bipolar now. She developed that. And what happened when I was 15 was there was a Valium scare. She was on a very high dose of Valium. There's this Valium scare. The doctor, they didn't know about withdrawal like we know about withdrawal now. Cut her dose by half because she was on such a high dose. The chemist made a mistake and cut it again, and she committed suicide. And it happened in a very violent way. She wanted to make sure it worked. She's so I kind of think my addiction started as a toddler, jealous of my sister and insecure because she'd taken my the attention away. But I think it then developed. I clashed with my dad a lot because we're very similar. And then, of course, my mum dying at 15 is tough. I mean, some people say, oh, God, I can't imagine it. But it was my normal, so that was that really. But my dad was a very critical person, and he, most unlikely really, but he married somebody else a couple of years later who also was very critical. And she is 90 this year. She's still the matriarch of the family. She's still got opinions on everything. And, I think I went through my teenage years. I couldn't stop eating, really. I first went to a pay and weigh when I was 16. And it worked. It taught me about nutrition in many ways. It taught me a lot of stuff, but it also taught me I could introduce what I now know are my red foods back in. And of course, as soon as I introduce those back in, that allergy of the body kicks off. And then I can't put it down again. And then I wonder why I've gained 3 stone again in the blink of an eye. And I used to think, God, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Why can't you just pull yourself together? And where's your willpower? And, all of that kind of thing. And it morphed into years and years of all sorts of diet clubs, hypnosis. I had a sugar coach in the US once for a few months. That cost me 800 quid. I mean, honestly, so ridiculous. Looking for a magic wand. I wanted a magic wand. I wanted to carry on eating what I was eating. I wanted to be thin. I didn't really want to put any, I was good at planning diets. I was good at counting my points or my sins or whatever it was. But because of my control and perfectionism and all weighing things down to the nth degree, I'd fall off the wagon. I realize now my perfectionism and control, some of my character defects. My life, I think I've got a plan for my life, and I just haven't. Other things happen. And by the time I was 17, 18, I'd gone to college, left within a year, couldn't really settle, didn't leave school with much. I mean, my GCSE or GCEs, they were then, were 3 months after my mum died. I didn't do any revision or anything. I just, kind of slightly rebelled. And I just put on loads and loads of weight. I think by then I was about 4 stone overweight. And I got a job. I mean, most people won't know this, Tim, but the YTS scheme back in the day was what you did if you weren't going to uni. And I used to starve myself all day and stop off on the way home and buy a big bag full of food, massive, binge all evening, go to sleep, get up the next day, do the same thing again. I didn't know. I knew how to eat healthily. I'd done all that. I was a bit of an expert in nutrition, but I didn't know how to stop eating the binge foods. And I just thought, I couldn't tell anybody that. How could I tell anybody that secret was just, people would think I was absolutely insane. And so it carried on. And the only reason I found out about OA was because I was married. I smile, it's not funny, but he was an alcoholic. I didn't know what an alcoholic was, but I found out it wasn't. I was looking for stability. I wanted my own home. I wanted something normal, but he wasn't the right person for that. And after that, I decided to go to uni age 27. So I was studying for A levels and while working, but I couldn't. I was racked with fear all the time, and I never knew that. I remember trying to revise, and I couldn't. My stomach was just flipping over, and I used to go to the local library and just sit there and try and study, just so people were around me. And I just was so frightened, but I didn't know that then. I thought I was independent, nobody was going to ever hurt me. I was strong. I didn't really trust people. I became a with my dad marrying my stepmom, I became a people pleaser because I learned, don't argue, just do whatever they want, go for the quiet life option. So I would go to whatever things they wanted me to do and then come away and binge to deal with it. And I didn't know that I was doing that because I felt so deeply uncomfortable with what I was doing. Anyways, I did get the results I needed to get to uni. And so I left my hometown when I was 27, which I still can't quite believe I did that because I must have been paralyzed with fear. But at that time, my dad became really, he became ill very fast. 12 weeks it took from diagnosis of a brain tumor in my second year to him dying. And I went to see the counsellor. I'd never sought any sort of counselling or any kind of external help. And she told me about OA. I told her about the eating, and that was how I came to go to the Southampton meeting. But, I went for about 6 months, and it took me another 25 years to walk back into the rooms because I thought I knew better. I thought the next diet would be the thing, whether it was fasting, cutting out food groups, whatever it was. And I honestly believed all the blurb. I thought it would work. I thought if I was thin, my life would be fabulous. And I believed it. What I just didn't know was that while I was agitating about food, either planning a binging, planning the next diet, doing the diet or falling off the diet, whatever it was, I could agitate about that and about my size and about what I looked like and what I could wear and what I couldn't wear. But what that all was a mask for how I was really feeling, which was resentful, angry, um, you know, fearful, which I didn't even had no idea. In terms of emotional sobriety, it's been a revelation in OA about that. Really, it's all about our feelings and how we deal with things. It's yeah. So I always thought I was fully in control of everything except this thing I had about food. So I came into OA in COVID time as lockdown happened because I thought I've actually got time to do the steps now. I knew it required commitment and work, and I thought, okay, I'm prepared. It took a long time. And my first sponsor was somebody that I met through a WhatsApp group, a Wednesday WhatsApp group. So I have no idea what she looks like, never seen her on a meeting or anything. It was all, and she took me through the steps and she took me through the big book. And I just I just didn't really much have a clue of what it was saying, what it was about. I didn't understand the language. I didn't understand the sort of complexity of it. I kind of just went along with it and I did what she told me to do. And I never missed a call that was scheduled. I did, not because I was loving it and I really wanted to do it or that I really liked her or anything, because I was a people pleaser and that's what I did. I just did what other people wanted me to do. So we came to the end, and I remember it's quite interesting with my step four. I was reflecting as a couple of real light bulb moments that Spencer, and I don't know where she is now. I haven't seen her for a long, long time, or heard her, I should say. And we were, I was banging on in my step four about my dad and how awful he was. He was so critical, this, that, and the other, and giving her all these examples. But she asked me some questions, and she just cut through it all. And she said, so what you're saying then is, emotionally unavailable, but he was a good provider. And I just thought, oh yeah, well he was. We had a nice home. We went abroad on holidays. We had a dishwasher and a video recorder when they first came. Materially, he was a good provider. That was his thing. And of course, since more recently, looking into some of his family history, which has been difficult because his dad's name isn't even on his birth certificate. So that gives you a clue. I think he had a tough upbringing, and he was evacuated during the war, miles away from London where he was born. And there's a load of reasons for why he was the way he was, but I didn't see any of that at the time. I just saw this bloke that was critical and was really strict, and just stopped me doing all the things I wanted to do. So it was really interesting. And for the first time, I think ever, I started to think, oh my God, the people on my step four inventory, they're people. They behave the way they do for a reason, not because their sole purpose in life is because they're out to get me. It's because they're coming from their own place of pain or whatever. And I started to have some compassion, and that was a real revelation to me. When I did step three, and the whole concept of, I didn't like God as I saw it at the time, littered through the big book. Now I just say God as interchangeably as my higher power, good orderly direction, whatever. I don't really call it anything. And I didn't really get my higher power thing. I just didn't get it. What I got was, if I sat in a meeting, I got a sense of real calm and serenity by the end of the meeting. But that's as much as I knew or understood, really. I didn't have a religious upbringing. But I definitely started to get sort of common sense things coming to me, intuition, or that sense of how to go about something, or when to keep my mouth shut, and just to recognize a little bit more about myself. It was a very strange thing. So definitely the drip variety, and not a white light experience. But I heard recently somebody doing a main share who calls their higher power Sam, which stands for Surely Ain't Me. And I think, yeah, that's exactly it, because I lean on my higher power so much now. I don't always remember. I remember eventually. And the things I do now because of that, that's not me. It just isn't me. And the mantra, it was another lead share where I heard somebody say about asking herself, what would a recovered person do in this instance? And sometimes when I think, oh God, what is the next right action for me? What do you want me to do next? And I can't it's too complicated for me to think through that in my mind. But if I say, what would a recovered person do? In an instant, I get the answer. So as an example, this morning, I needed to make a few bullet points for tonight, but I was putting it off. Fear, obviously, which I recognise that now. And I got a few things I wanted to do, and I was just getting a little bit overwhelmed, a little bit agitated. And I know it was because of fear of tonight and doing this share. But and I just thought, it just came to me, oh my God, what would a recovered person do? And it's like, right, a recovered person would do one task at a time, instead of faffing around doing a bit here and a bit there and moving the washing around the house. And it's just like, do one thing, finish it, then do the next thing. And the fear, it's not me. It just went. And the day after that, just settled into whatever it was going to be, And I just think, yeah, I don't know how it works. I don't need to know. It does work. The difficulty is remembering, remembering to go to that, rather than getting stuck in myself with my own self will and my own views and opinions on everything. Um, when I came to step 6 and 7, it was interesting because I can see now I like to be in control of everything. I want things my way. I'm a perfectionist. I got false pride. I can see that I magnify things in my head. My head will agitate over things, worry, bargain. It just, I need to get out of my head. And that's something else that OA allows me to do. If I work the tools, I can get out of my head and think much more clearly, straightforwardly, and take that next, right action. I Again, when I did step 4, I did it the big book way, as I said. And when you're circling the defects and things, and it didn't really mean much to me. I didn't really get it then, but I that was how I came into this meeting, was because I thought I need to understand this big book. It's a bit blurry to me at the moment, and I don't know how long I've been coming here now, but I bet it's 4 years. It's got to be. It's been ages, and because we go paragraph by paragraph most weeks, at first I couldn't have shared. I felt I had nothing to offer, and then I got to the point where I would hear other people share, and the paragraph we were sharing on would come to life, and I would think, oh right, okay, yeah, I get that. And then I got to the point where when other people had shared, I could share at the end, because then I got something to say. It became clearer to me. And now I realise I quite often jump in early on, because then I can settle in and actually listen to what everybody else is saying, rather than worrying about what I'm going to say if I share. So it's such a journey, of working the program, working the steps, practicing all the principles in all my affairs. It's an ongoing journey, and I'm kind of like learning all the time. And of course, the point of it all is to live in step 11, 10, 11, and 12. And step 10s, again, it took me a while to get to grips with it. First of all, to even clock it, even to realize that. And again, my first sponsor, I remember talking to her about something, I can't remember what it was, and she said, oh yeah, so that's a fear underpinned, that's a resentment underpinned by a fear. And I thought, oh yeah, I see what you mean. I'm resentful against this person. It's nothing to do with that. There's a fear under there. I wish I could remember what it was. I can't remember. But and bit by bit, as I practice the principles, the penny drops with me. And the third thing I remember from that sponsor was, she said to me when I'd gone through the steps, so it must have been towards the end of 2020, you need to join the 10-step train now. And she told me all about it and sent me the stuff. And it took me, I joined last August. It took me 5 years to join that train, because I still know better, think I do. I'm still the expert on my own life. I still don't need help, Honestly, after all the last 5 years and 6 years, I still go into my own self-will. And of course, when I did join it, then I really got it, because then every day I have to write out a script, and I have to think, right, where have I been resentful, or where have I been fearful? And oh my God, it's so clear. They come winging in, and it's so obvious. And then I can really look at, okay, what's it really all about? What am I trying to do? What's my role in this? Am I trying to get attention from somebody? Am I trying to manipulate something? I heard somebody share recently, they said, I never knew buying somebody a bunch of flowers was self-seeking. And I really thought about that. I thought, well, I'm not sure I agree with that. And then I thought a bit more about it, and I thought, oh, it really depends on the motive. So, if I'm genuinely buying somebody a bunch of flowers for some reason, that's just a really nice thing to do, that's it. But I send my stepmom flowers every year on her birthday. And honestly, I've been doing it for years, and I still resent it. So it just shows, doesn't it? And why am I doing it? I'm doing it because I'm looking for validation from her. She's still very critical, I'm looking for validation, looking for attention. I'm looking for her to be grateful to me. I don't know what I'm looking for, but who knew all that would come out of me buying somebody a bunch of flowers? All this emotional unsobriety going on in my brain all the time. And the only way it comes to light is if I really work this program. And the 10-step train makes me do it. And, it's never convenient to have a call every day with somebody. You have the same person for a fortnight. You just, but I just do it. I don't debate in my head whether I like it or don't like it. I come off that call, I feel better. And I hear what somebody else has shared. And I think, yeah, we're all the same. None of us are perfect. We're just human. We're all agitating and worrying and want to do the best for people in our lives, but people don't do what we want them to, and that's upsetting. And all of that comes to light from doing that train. And it's amazing. It's years ago, my stepmom was saying to me, I think you should do some voluntary work. It'd be good for your CV. It just shows you sort of as a well-rounded person. And I just thought, why would you do voluntary work? Why would you do unpaid work? I don't get it. Why would you? But now I kind of think OA service is voluntary work, basically. But and I think the reason why people do other voluntary work is because it makes me feel better. It's not because I'm a lovely, lovely person who genuinely wants to give all my time to everybody else. It's because if I can help somebody, share my knowledge, share my experience, strength, and hope, and they get something out of it, I feel it makes me feel better. It gets me out of my head. My head was the head that was my world was dominated by what the scale said. They would make or break my day. I mean, a piece of tin on the floor, ridiculous. And standing in queues at slimming clubs waiting to be weighed, my heart would be beating out of my chest as to whether I'd lost half a pound or gained, I mean, insane behavior, really. Why would I do that to myself? I just don't weigh myself anymore. It was hard to break that because I was very attached to my scales. And I would like the high I got if I'd lost weight. But and then we didn't have any for a while. We have got some now, but my son and my husband use them. I just don't. They're in the bathroom. I don't even think about it. But I did get to the stage on this journey of the scales where I would not weigh myself for a couple of months and then just think, I just wonder what's happening. And my heart would start beating really fast again before I stepped on them. And it was like, it was doing something for me, those scales, just like food does something for me. That's not good. Anything that changes me like that is not good. So I just don't weigh myself anymore. And my weight has gone down. Of course, I would like to lose a few more pounds. But I was thinking today, how different would my life be if, say, I was 10 pounds lighter? And it would be absolutely no different at all, just not in any way at all. So that just shows why does my brain still go there, but it's because I'm human and I get that, and that's fine. I'm just kind of normal, I suppose. I'm just looking at the time. Okay, I haven't done 11 and 12, so maybe I should save that for questions. But there's no magic wand with this. Another person I heard share said, it's not a spectator sport. We have to take action. If I don't take action, nothing's going to happen. It's not going to happen for me, and no thing or person can come in and save me. And it's interesting. I was talking to my sponsor this week about trying to manage my unmanageable diary because I tend to put too much stuff in it. And she said, "Oh, what about an action plan then? What's your action plan to actually manage it, reduce things, rejig things, whatever?" And it's just like, oh yeah, and I've actually got to do something. I can't just keep complaining about it, how overwhelmed I am or how tired I am. I've actually got to take some action. And even now, that was a revelation. And I know I have to take action every day. So, this is an ongoing journey. It's an ongoing journey. It'll be for life. And I'm quite happy with that. I love it. I it anchors my day. If I can start off with some program, it ends my day. Yeah, it just allows me to do amazing things with peace and calm. Somebody said to me a couple of years ago, "Oh, are you going to the OA birthday party in LA?" And I thought, LA? No. And then before I knew it, there I was in LA with some of the fellows in this room. I mean, oh my God, talk about beyond my wildest dreams. How can that even happen? I've just come back from doing service at the World Service Business Conference in New Mexico. I mean, how did that even happen? How did that happen from somebody that would spend their evening binging bags of food? I mean, it's a different world. And all I have to do is keep living by the principles of the program. And I can be like a pressure cooker about to blow sometimes. It's the disease of more. It used to be more food. Now it's cramming things in my diary. I've got piles of books I want to read. I've got stuff on Netflix I want to watch. I bought too many plants at the garden centre yesterday. I put some in. There's some that I haven't put in. My disease is still a disease of more. I want more of everything. And I can get to that pressure cooker ready to blow type thing. But food is the last thing to go. So I have to clock all these things and deal with them throughout the reach, through step tens. And then I just get my sanity back and I just keep thinking, what would a recovered person do? What does my higher power want me to do to deal with this? And things like, binging on train journeys, long train journeys, always used to, make me binge. I don't know, but I used to binge. I came through Euston recently, and it was such a joy to look at Marks and Spencer's at Euston Station and just think, my God, I've spent a fortune in there and just stuffed my face all the way back up to the Lake District before. I don't know what, like, why would you do that? But my mind was insane. I couldn't. I was deeply in the disease. I was swirling around with it all, and I could not find a way out. Um, and sometimes fear really rises up. My son went to uni, massive amount of fear about him leaving home. Now he's just finished his first year, and we went and fetched him last weekend, and now he's back again. and the washing's tripled, and it's like, oh my God, I was so upset when he went, and I can't believe he's back. And I just worked the program. I had some fellows that shared their experience with me. Really, really helped. My mother-in-law is also 90 this year. She's struggling. I've done a few step tens about that. And again, another fellow gave me some excellent guidance on how she's managed with an aging relative. All these things that aren't food, but they're about my feelings. And if I can work the program to deal with those, then it's amazing. So I did want to talk about step 11 and step 12, but maybe that'll come up in the questions instead. But I just wanted to read the last bit of Bill Wilson's thing he wrote, where he says, I'm not mentioning, that's the wrong one. He says, if we can work out this emotional sobriety, if we can examine every disturbance we have, whether it's great or small, we can find at the root of it some unhealthy dependency and its consequent unhealthy demand. Let us, with God's help, continually surrender these hobbling demands. Then we can be set free to live and love. Nowadays, my brain no longer races compulsively in either elation, grandiosity, or depression. I have been given a quiet place in bright sunshine. It's an ongoing journey to emotional sobriety. I'll never get there. Thank God for that. Thank God this is ongoing. And I'm just very grateful to be a compulsive eater. Who knew I'd ever say something like that? Thank you.
Wow, Gail, thank you so much. That was incredible. Thank you for sharing so honestly all of the stuff you've gone through. And yeah, just wonderful, wonderful. Wow. Okay. I have a script to read. Okay, so send me your questions. So thanks, Gail. I will now open the Q&A section of our meeting, which, as you'll see, is also being recorded. So if you have a question, like somebody's already done, post your questions to me using the chat function, and I will ask them on your behalf. And I've also posted, just to let you know, I've posted the WhatsApp. No, try again. The YouTube link for our meeting. So this recording will be posted in about hopefully an hour after the meeting closes, and you'll be able to listen to this again and many of the other speaker recordings that are on there. So send me your questions. Okay, Gail, let's get ready. First question. So how do you make time for your higher power on the spot step tens when at work? No problem if not. If I find it really difficult going from task to task, meeting to meeting. So any advice?
On step tens, yeah. At work, did you say?
Yeah, kind of checking in with your higher power, step tens. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's really hard. It's really hard to get into the habit. And you know, the truth is sometimes I forget. Often I forget. I thought this week I've just only yesterday put an alarm on my watch for twice a day, 11 a.m. and 2 p.m., just to give me a nudge to check in with my higher power. And so, that's just this week. It's difficult. I think that did work today for me. So that's a new thing. It's really difficult. It's said to do step tens immediately, and some people, have got such strong recovery, they can sort of do it in their heads, work it through, see their role, make an amends if they need to, do an apology if they need to, and then move on. I I I don't find that so easy. I find it easier to write it out. Um, Working from home I don't know what the work is, but working from home is easier, I think, because I've got post-its littered around me saying, what would a recovered person do, and in how to act. But also to do an outreach call as soon as you possibly can. There's a really good step 10 WhatsApp group. So, at the next possible opportunity, just ask somebody to listen to it and give you some feedback if you want some. The thing is clocking them. That was the hardest thing that I had to get used to. I just didn't clock them at all. I didn't realize I was paralyzed by fear. So, and then the 10th step train, it's life changing. I mean, it's a bit sort of evangelical, but yeah. So I would, and then what that forces you to do, say you've been at work all day and you're doing it in the evening, it forces you to think, right, what happened today? What actually happened? What went wrong? Where was I paralyzed with fear? Work meetings. Oh my God, that's a familiar one with me. Yeah. So don't know if that's any help.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gail, and thanks for the question. Okay, the next question. Thank you, Gail, for great and emotional share. Can you share your step 11 practice?
Thank you for that. God, my step 11 practice. I love my step 11 practice because I like stationery and I've got loads of pens and I've got the OA journal. And on the left hand side, you've got your action plan for the day, food plan, gratitudes. And on the right hand side, you've got your evening review. Where have I been resentful? Where have I been selfish? What have I done for others? And all of that just centers my mind and my thinking. And sometimes I write loads and sometimes I write a couple of lines. So I'm not saying it's a perfect thing. I really like early bird meeting or the Irish on awakening meeting, and I like to just listen and write at the same time, and it grounds me, it centers me, it stops me charging into my day 100 miles an hour in my own will and forgetting that I've even got a higher power. Because if I do that, it won't be long before I end up in the food. Might not be today, but it could well be by the end of the week. I submit my step 11 nightly review to my sponsor every evening, and I just do it, and it doesn't matter how tired I am, or I just get on with it, because it's about, I have to be accountable to myself. I have to do the stuff that keeps me well. So the stuff that I just do it, and I don't bargain or think about it. I just do it because it keeps me out of the food, and it keeps reminding me I am a compulsive eater. I just will lose my sanity and lose the plot if I don't keep grounded. And all the OA tools will help keep me grounded. So step 11, yeah, brilliant one. I really, really recommend it.
Wonderful. Thanks, Gail. Okay, next question. Thank you so much, Gail, for your share. How has your service at World Service helped your recovery?
Yeah, really, really interesting at World Service. I mean, I love the business side of OA as well. I've learned, it just I finished work before Christmas, and I just love all the business side of how things work. And I one of the things that took my breath away at the conference was some of the stats that every trustee of the board and the managed and the paid people who work at head office, including the managing director, submit a report. And the managing director's report had got stats like just short of 30,000 people, 30,000 hits on the Find a Meeting on the OA website. So, that's probably not 30,000 people, because some people will be looking more than once, but that's a lot of people across the world who are in pain with food addiction, or think they might be, or just want help and just want to talk to somebody. And there's some amazing stats. The number of countries, I haven't got it with me actually, 20 odd countries, I think, something like 12 different languages, phenomenal. This fellowship is phenomenal. And it just made me, again, grateful to be a compulsive eater, because it's all voluntary, and apart from seventh tradition, it's basically free. When I think of the money I spent on diets and everything else, and I met people with decades of recovery. I met the sister of somebody who goes to the early bird meeting completely by chance. I mean, and people that have just get it. They just live it. That's the thing. They live it. And I thought, yeah, I live it, I think, and I want to continue living it. And it really helped me to speak to people that it's just their life. And probably for me, probably one of my next things is how I talk to other people about it, because I don't tell people. And my husband obviously knows. My kids don't really know, but I don't tell people outside of it. So it's that's probably my next thing, is to learn from these people with a lot of recovery, long-term recovery, how else they manage it, and manage that message. Yeah, amazing. I would recommend it to anybody.
Wonderful. Thanks, Karen. Thanks for doing that service. Okay, next person. It was not a question, it's more of a comment. They just wanted to thank you for your other share. They're listening while they're at work, but this is their second OA meeting. So although there wasn't a question, any kind of words of encouragement you'd like to kind of pass on to any newcomer?
Yeah, I think, it's when you come in, there's so much information, and people are talking a different language. And I would just say, don't be put off by it. Don't be frightened by it. It's a very, very safe place. The thing we most understand about each other, and we come from all sorts of walks of life, is that we have this thing about food. And whether we binge on it, whether we're bulimic, whether we're anorexic, whatever we are, for whatever reason, food became our drug of choice. And so don't be scared off by it. It's a really safe place, talking to people who get it. Our medical profession is brilliant, but they don't, if they're not compulsive eaters, they don't get it. We know what we've done with food. I've done all sorts of stupid things with food, eaten it too hot, frozen, dropped off on the floor and picked up. We just get it. We understand it, and you can be honest. And anything anybody ever shares, we get it, and we've heard it before, and we understand it. So don't be put off. And I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't understand the big book at all. So this is why I started coming to this meeting, and now it's become one of my absolute favourites. But the first thing I did was I knew how to diet and I knew how to binge. I didn't know what normal was. I didn't know how I was going to manage to get through the day without snacking. I mean, it makes me smile when I think about the diet clubs and how much food I could get into a bag to take to work within the points thing. I just was eating all day, it didn't stop. So my first thing was 3 meals a day, and I just needed to get the right size meal so that I wasn't ravenous before the next meal and would want to binge, or and it was that. So the first thing was 3 meals a day. But take when people share their phone numbers at the end, take those numbers and ring them and just say, I'm brand new, I don't even know what to say to you, anything you can tell me about what you know. And that's all you have to say. And don't be scared, because we've all been there. We've all been there, and it's really hard in the beginning, but it's the freedom of not binging is phenomenal. Yeah.
It's great. Thanks for that, Gail. And thank you and welcome to that person. Okay, so next question. Thanks, Gail, for your inspirational share of depth and weight. Can you share your experience, strength, and hope around step 12 and work responsibilities, please?
Yeah, I when I because I wanted to, I've always needed to be. So as an example, when I was a student, I always worked behind bars. I always liked being behind the bar, sort of not the other side, not the party. I used to think I was a party person. I used to eat and drink my way through events, and I realised it was just to get through them because I didn't really want to be there. I always like to be involved in stuff. I'm trying to think of another example, but I can't really. So the only way for me to feel involved and not feel marginalised, for example, with early bird in the morning, often people are chatting before the meeting started, and I would join and sort of feel, everybody knew each other and I didn't know anybody, and just that feeling of isolation. So I started doing service quite quickly because it was the way to get me involved, to be part of the group, as people would know my name and know my voice. And so just you can start off doing really tiny things like just read the tradition or just read the steps. They're always screen shared. You don't, and something like that just gets you involved and you start to become part of the group. My service has really grown. When I again, my sponsor said to me when I'd done the steps, you need to sponsor now, and I just thought, how can how can I possibly? I know nothing about this program. But what I realise now is, of course, I would know more than somebody brand new coming in who just feels full of self-loathing because they can't stop eating. And that's all we're doing. We're just sharing our experience and how we've done it. So I do sponsor now, have 3 sponsees, and I do different types of sponsoring depending. Sometimes it's big books, sometimes it's OA 12 and 12. I have done the 15-week step study course, and I've led that twice as well, and that gave me a really good understanding and a grounding of everything. So it was service, but obviously I'm learning at the same time. And then like this meeting, it became one of my favorites. I've got 2. The early bird is the other one. So I do quite a lot of service on both of them because it keeps me living and breathing the principles. I get reminded several times a day, of what it's all about. And because I like the business side of it, I became a group service rep and went to Intergroup. And because I got interested in world service, I kept giving service until I could tick off the requirements needed to go to world service and do that. So the service has evolved. I didn't do all of it in the very beginning. In the beginning, I would just read the steps or something, and that's all you need to do. There's no need to do all of it straight away. And yeah. So service really important. It keeps me well again. I've got to keep giving away what I've learned to newcomers coming in, and and that keeps me well.
Brilliant. Thank you for that. Okay, next question is kind of a follow-up on your step 11. You mentioned your step 11 journal. Is this something you made yourself or an official publication?
It's the OA official journal, which you can buy on the OAGB website. Not that expensive. I can't exactly remember. It used to fall apart all the time, but there's a new printer and it's brilliant now. It's fabulous. I do like stationery, and it's a pleasure to write in it. Yeah, so really easy. The people giving service at OAGB post it out to you, and I normally order about 3 at a time, just so I've got plenty in stock, and it gives me a focus. Because I will forget. I've got a built-in forgetting brain, and my power, my own will take over. That asks me specific questions in the morning and in the evening, and it doesn't have to be perfectly completed. Like the food plan, for example. Sometimes a fellow said once, I'm traveling. It'll be at an airport. I don't know what I'll get to eat. I don't know what will be available. I can't do a food plan, but I know what I'm not having. Simple as that. And that I still say that, and it still gives me because I just think it's as simple as that. All this writing and journaling, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, what would your higher power do? What would a recovered person do? They would think, right, okay, I don't know what food will be available. I can't do a food plan, but I know I'll be at the airport. I know there'll be something. I know what I'm not having. And that's it. And that makes my shoulders go down. My stomach, I feel the relief of not trying to agitate and panic and, yeah. Did that answer the question? I forgot what the question was.
That was it, basically. The person isn't in the UK, so I don't know. I'll just share the link to the website. You might or might not be out of the country. I'm not sure. Okay, probably got time for this last question. Maybe one more, depends on the response. Thank you, Gail, for your share. They really related to it a lot. Can you, what helped you most work out what was a good enough meal was when working your 3 meals a day abstinence?
Yeah, that's a really good question because I gained weight at first. We were in COVID, so it was all stretchy leggings and all the rest of it. So I wasn't wearing work. I was wearing work tops, but so it was, ordinarily, I know I've got a wardrobe of all the different sizes, and it goes up and down. And I just didn't know. I was so scared that I would be hungry and want to eat something before my next meal, that I had big meals to make sure I'd be okay. I mean, more insanity, but actually it was okay because over time my meals right sized and became a bit smaller. And I mean, this is so stupid, but I find my husband is nearly 6 foot. My son nearly is. I don't need to have meals as big as them. I'm 5'3". For years, my husband and I would have meals the same size. It's just, I don't need the calories. I don't need that amount of food. So gradually it came down. I should say, actually, I've probably lost about 3 stone, and I did weigh myself one time, and I'd lost about 1.5 stone, and then it just kept coming down. And I thought, how can that possibly be? How can I have lost weight and not know that much weight? Like I said, it was stretchy clothes at the time, but that just shows how the program works, because my obsession with those scales was lifted and the weight just came off, very, very gradually. It's taken 6 years, but so gradually I didn't even notice because I was focused on the program, and that's much better for me and my well-being. So the meals, there's the plan of eating. I personally didn't like it because it's reminded me of the diet clubs, so much of this and so much of that and so much of the other. My food plan has changed massively over time, and the last couple of years I've been eating a different sort of way, and it works for me. It's like, getting older, a little bit of arthritis creeping in, obviously the menopause. I've had quite an easy, not too bad a ride with the menopause. I think it's because of what I'm eating, not eating the processed stuff, which I had IBS for years. It's pretty much gone. So the food plan, I wouldn't worry too much about it. I would say 3 meals, and don't worry about what it is. Just get that first, and it just comes. It just comes. We want it all now, of course we do, but it comes in time. Yeah.
Wonderful. There was another question, but I think you've kind of touched on that. They asked kind of any suggestions, because you mentioned earlier in your share not being able to put down the food, initially they were just looking for any suggestions, but I think you kind of touched on that. But was there anything else you wanted to add, kind of advice, guidance onto that question?
Yeah. I mean, I think I remember somebody saying once, your red foods, it's not that you have never got to have them, that you won't ever be able to have them again, a birthday or a wedding or Christmas or whatever, you won't want them. And I just thought, well, good for you, because I thought I can't ever imagine that happening to me. But that is true. That is what happens. You just my brain is being rewired bit by bit. My behaviors bit by bit, very slowly, are changing. And it's true. I can be around people, I can be in supermarkets, there's stuff swirling around, and I don't even notice it. The big holidays, the Christmas, the Easter, all that kind of thing, I just don't see it. And that's a miracle. And when you're first in, you don't believe that's possible. That's just impossible. But all I would say is just keep coming back, keep chipping away, just keep coming back, keep listening, and it just eventually, bit by bit, falls into place when your higher power wants to reveal the next bit of learning to you. It's not me, it's bigger than me. It surely ain't me.
Fantastic. Thank you, Gail. I think we've come to the end of Q&A. That hour's gone pretty quick, so Q&A has come to a close. Thank you so much, Gail, for all your service, time and energy, not just today, but throughout the weeks for this meeting. What a wonderful share, and thank you for the questions and the responses. Okay, so I'll open the chat now for people to share their numbers for outreach. If you'd like to, please post your name and number into the chat, and if you aren't available sponsor, please indicate this along with your details. And I have also posted a link to our WhatsApp group if you want to join us for fellowship between meetings and get notified when our next meeting will be. Okay, so if you are new or have questions, we do have a newcomers hub where our newcomer greeters, we've just changed service. I think it's still Rebecca. Anyway, our newcomers greeters will be more than happy to have more informal chat in a breakout area. If you'd like to stay behind at the end of the meeting, if you just raise your electronic hand now or before the meeting closes, we'll invite you to that breakout room. Mentioned the WhatsApp. Okay, so we'll close the meeting the same way we always close our New Freedom Big Book study meeting by reading the 12 promises of recovery as laid out in the Big Book of AA, beginning at the bottom of page 83 with the paragraph, if we are painstaking, and ending, if we work for them. And Gail, as you know, we ask our guest speaker to read those for us.
Thank you. If we are painstaking about this phase of our development, we will be amazed before we are halfway through. We are going to know a new freedom and a new happiness. We will not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it. We will comprehend the word serenity and we will know peace. No matter how far down the scale we have gone, we will see how our experience can benefit others. That feeling of uselessness and self-pity will disappear. We will lose interest in selfish things and gain interest in our fellows. Self-seeking will slip away. Our whole attitude and outlook upon life will change. Fear of people and of economic insecurity will leave us. We will intuitively know how to handle situations which used to baffle us. We will suddenly realize that God is doing for us what we could not do for ourselves. Are these extravagant promises? We think not. They are being fulfilled among us, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. They will always materialize if we work for them.
Thanks again, Gail, and thanks for bringing those to life for us today. So thank you everybody for joining us today. Our meetings do recur on a weekly basis, and our next meeting is scheduled for next Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. UK time. May your high power bless you and keep you until then.